Emma and Daniel Whitaker had been married for 7 years. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple. Their house, a cozy 2-story home on a quiet suburban street, was filled with laughter, love, and memories of their journey together. Emma worked as an interior designer, known for her elegant taste and warm smile, while Daniel was a high school teacher who always had a funny story to tell at dinner parties. They were surrounded by friends and family who adored them. But behind the laughter, a quiet sadness loomed. They had been trying to have a child for nearly 5 years. What started with excitement and hope slowly turned into heartbreak. Each month brought fresh anticipation, only to be crushed by another negative pregnancy test. They tried everything, tracking Emma's cycles, adjusting their diets, scheduling appointments with specialists, and even taking a short vacation, hoping that less stress might help. But nothing worked. The final blow came during a routine checkup when a fertility specialist with a softened tone told them their chances of conceiving naturally were extremely low. Emma barely spoke during the car ride home. She stared out the window at the passing trees, blinking away tears she refused to let fall. Daniel reached for her hand at a red light and gave it a gentle squeeze, silently offering her the only comfort he could. She squeezed back, but neither of them said a word. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest. Emma began to withdraw. She skipped her best friend's baby shower and avoided social media, unable to face the stream of ultrasound photos and gender reveals. Her journal, once filled with dreams of nursery themes and baby names, sat untouched in her nightstand drawer. Daniel stayed strong for her, though he often found himself wide awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why they had been denied something that seemed to come so easily to others. They talked about fertility treatments, IVF, egg donors, but the costs were overwhelming, and the emotional toll seemed insurmountable. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Emma looked across the table and said softly, "I don't think I can keep doing this." Daniel nodded. "Then we stop," he said gently. "We stop trying, but we don't stop dreaming." She looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we start dreaming differently," he said. "What if we open our hearts to adoption?" Emma blinked, unsure what to say. Adoption. It had crossed her mind once or twice, but she had always seen it as a last resort. Not because she didn't believe in it, but because it meant fully letting go of her dream to carry a child herself. Still, something about Daniel's calm, hopeful tone made her listen. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't know if I'm ready." "That's okay," Daniel said, reaching across the table. "We'll take it one step at a time, together." And for the first time in months, Emma felt the heaviness in her chest lift, just a little. Maybe the path they had imagined was closed, but maybe, just maybe, there was another way forward. The following weeks were filled with cautious conversations, tentative research, and moments of quiet reflection. Emma and Daniel didn't rush into anything. Instead, they gave each other time to grieve the dream they had held for so long. There were still hard days. Days when Emma would see a mother pushing a stroller at the park and feel a pang of loss. But those feelings gradually began to coexist with something new, curiosity and a fragile hope. One Saturday morning, Daniel printed out information about a local adoption agency and placed it on the kitchen table alongside Emma's favorite tea. When she came downstairs and saw it, she paused. She looked at him, unsure, but he smiled gently. "No pressure, just something to look at when you're ready." Emma sat down, picked up the pamphlet and started to read. They attended an information session 2 weeks later, sitting in a room with 5 other couples, all in various stages of the same journey. Some had children already and were looking to adopt again. Others, like them, were just beginning to let go of the biological route. The counselor, a warm woman named Teresa, spoke gently but honestly about the process, about wait lists, home studies, emotional readiness, and the unpredictability of it all. It's not a backup plan, Teresa said with quiet conviction. It's a different plan, a beautiful one, but different. Emma found herself nodding. The home study process was long and emotionally taxing. They had to undergo background checks, attend parenting classes, write autobiographies, and prepare their home for inspection. They were asked deeply personal questions about their childhoods, their marriage, their values, and their motivations. At times, it felt invasive. At times, Emma questioned whether they would ever be chosen. But Daniel remained calm, encouraging her through every doubt. During one late-night session of filling out paperwork, Daniel looked over at Emma and said, "You know, if we make it through this, there's nothing we can't face." Emma smiled, tired but grateful. "We already have," she said. Then came the waiting. Once their profile was approved, they were added to a pool of prospective adoptive parents. Birth mothers would now be reviewing their story, their photos, their letters. Weeks passed, then months. Each time the phone rang, Emma's heart jumped, only to be disappointed when it wasn't the agency. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, nearly 6 months later, the call came. "Emma? Daniel? A birth mother has chosen your profile. She's due in 6 weeks. She wants to meet you." Emma's hands trembled. She put the phone on speaker and Daniel reached for her hand. Their eyes locked. This was it. The meeting was set for the following weekend at the agency. Emma and Daniel were nervous, rehearsing what to say, how to present themselves without sounding desperate or fake. But when they walked into the room and saw the young woman sitting there, barely 20, her hands resting gently on her belly, they felt something shift. Her name was Kayla. She was soft-spoken, thoughtful, and clearly struggling with the weight of her decision. "I want him to have a good life," she said, looking at Emma and Daniel. "I want him to have 2 parents who love each other, who've been waiting for him." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "We have," she whispered. "We've been waiting for him our whole lives." Kayla smiled, and in that moment, it clicked. There was still a long way to go, still legal steps and emotional hurdles ahead, but a connection had been made. Emma and Daniel left that meeting filled with cautious excitement and overwhelming gratitude. In the car on the way home, Daniel looked over and said, "You know, I think this might actually happen." Emma smiled through tears. "It already is." The weeks leading up to Kayla's due date were some of the most emotionally intense of Emma and Daniel's lives. Their days were a whirlwind of preparation, assembling a crib, buying tiny clothes, folding soft blankets, and rearranging their guest room into a nursery that somehow made it all feel real. But beneath the excitement was an undercurrent of anxiety. Nothing was guaranteed. Each morning, Emma checked her phone obsessively, half expecting the agency to call with bad news, that Kayla had changed her mind, that something had gone wrong. It was a fear she struggled to shake, even as she painted stars on the nursery walls and hung the mobile Daniel had built by hand. "Don't get too attached yet," she whispered to herself more than once. But how could she not? Then one quiet evening, as a late autumn wind rustled the trees outside, the phone finally rang. Emma's breath caught as she answered. "She's in labor," Teresa said from the agency. "She asked for you both to come." The hospital was just an hour away, but the drive felt endless. Emma sat in silence, her hands clenched in her lap, while Daniel kept one hand on the wheel and the other on hers. When they arrived, they were escorted to a small family waiting room. It was bright and clean, filled with worn magazines and a pot of weak coffee. Hours passed. They paced. They tried to rest. Emma stared at the clock, her heart in her throat. Then Teresa appeared, smiling gently. "He's here. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Healthy. Kayla wants you to meet him." Emma's legs went weak, but Daniel caught her hand and steadied her. They followed Teresa down the hallway, their steps slow, reverent. When they entered the recovery room, Kayla looked up. From her bed with tired eyes and a small smile, in her arms was the baby. "He's beautiful," Emma whispered, unable to stop the tears. She didn't reach out right away. She waited, not wanting to presume. But then Kayla, with trembling hands, held the baby out. "Would you like to hold your son?" she asked. Emma gasped. Her son. She stepped forward slowly and gathered him into her arms, overwhelmed by the warmth and weight of him. He was real, soft and perfect and squirming against her chest. Daniel stood beside her, eyes brimming with emotion, his hand resting on the baby's tiny back. They spent the next 2 days at the hospital, bonding with the baby, sleeping on the couch in the family room, learning to feed him, change him, swaddle him. Kayla stayed nearby, sometimes visiting, sometimes resting alone. There was a quiet understanding between them, a mutual love for the child they both held in their hearts. On the 3rd day, Kayla signed the papers. There were tears, so many tears, but also peace. Kayla hugged Emma for a long time. "Take good care of him," she said, "and tell him about me when he's ready." "I will," Emma promised, her voice shaking. "He'll know how much you love him." They left the hospital as a family of 3, their hearts full and aching all at once. The drive home was different this time. Quieter, more sacred. Emma sat in the back seat beside the car seat, watching the baby's chest rise and fall. At home, Daniel unlocked the front door and pushed it open. "Welcome home," he whispered to the tiny boy, his voice cracking. They named him Noah. The first few weeks with baby Noah were a blur of midnight feedings, diaper changes, and a kind of exhaustion Emma and Daniel had never known. But even in their sleep-deprived haze, they were filled with wonder. Every sound Noah made, every sleepy smile, every time he curled his tiny hand around one of their fingers, it all felt like magic. Emma took to motherhood with a quiet intensity. She sang to Noah as she rocked him, even when her voice cracked. With emotion, the ache that had haunted her for so long had softened. It hadn't disappeared. Some part of her still remembered the grief of what they had lost, but it no longer consumed her. What had taken its place was something brighter, fuller. Daniel became the storyteller. Every night as Emma fed Noah, he would sit beside them and tell stories about their family, about how they met, how they painted the nursery, how a brave young woman named Kayla gave them the most incredible gift. Sometimes Emma would cry silently during these stories, not from sadness, but from a deep, overwhelming gratitude. They sent Kayla updates, letters with photos, gentle reassurances that Noah was safe and thriving. Kayla never wrote back, but Emma understood. She wanted to believe that Kayla was healing in her own way, finding peace in the life she'd chosen for her son. Noah grew quickly. At 6 months, he had Daniel's warm brown eyes and a laugh that filled the house like music. At 1 year, he was taking his first wobbly steps, reaching out toward his parents with trust and joy. Emma and Daniel threw him a small birthday party with a few close friends, who marveled at how parenthood had changed them. "You're glowing," someone told Emma. "I'm home," she replied simply. That night, after the guests had left and Noah was asleep, Emma and Daniel sat on the living room floor, surrounded by wrapping paper and toys. A half-eaten piece of cake sat on a plate beside them. Daniel looked around the room, then at Emma. "Can you believe we're here?" Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I still can't, but I'm so glad we didn't give up." He kissed the top of her head. "We didn't get the life we imagined," he said. "We got something even better." Emma smiled and looked toward the nursery where their son slept. "Love found us," she whispered, and in the quiet of that evening, in the warmth of their shared journey, they knew this was the family they were always meant to be. Not born from biology, but from love, choice, and the courage to begin again.